Google is partnering with Shopify. According to the article here, Shopify is going to introduce their customer base, their sellers, by showcasing their products across Google's platform, whether through maps, images, search, as well as in YouTube. And according to businessinsiders.com, the Google partnership with Spotify will enable or help businesses improve their performance. And what's interesting here, according to the president of e-commerce, according to Bill Rady, he stated that sellers would have their products featured across all of Google's $1 billion daily shopping journeys taking place in the search engine, as mentioned, as for images, maps, as well as in YouTube full spectrum. What's interesting here is obviously, is it a good partnership between the two companies here, wherein Shopify, for those who are not familiar, is a e-commerce giant in the North American region. Similarly, competing in a sense like in the case with Amazon, but the difference here is Shopify's main goal is to help small businesses grow rather than compete with them, what Amazon tends to do in their own ecosystem. Anyway, so why would they partner with Google here? Now they're leveraging that the network that Google's have, or the access with the user base here, would enable them to, improve their business growth or revenues as well by using this so-called shopping graph, in a sense, a new tool that uses machine learning to gather prices, reviews, and product videos from multiple brands and retailers' website to better inform shoppers. Now, obviously, with the expertise of Google's, keeping track of your information and being able to leverage that to Shopify's sellers, then they could craft a better, they could target specifically to specific audiences that are looking for a certain product or services here. And obviously, connecting people with over 24 billion listings, which is a lot of people, is a big advantage, wherever you look at it, whether you're in Amazon's ecosystem, or in this case in Google's platform here. And according for the retailers, they mentioned this is going to be a big deal, since they're going to give them free exposure to millions of people who come to Google every day for their everyday shopping preferences. And obviously, is it a good partnership, or why is Google willing to provide this free services at what cost? Now, obviously, nothing in life is for free. And if we were to look closely, that, if you're Google, obviously keeping track or getting more information from your customer base, in this case, Shopify's customer base, would give them a better understanding of what buying behavior an individual has. And obviously, they could sell that to advertisers to sell them more products, not just in Shopify, but as well as outside of Shopify's platform here. And obviously, it's a win-win situation for both companies, since they'll be leveraging the technology of what Google has, and helping businesses, which is what Shopify is here to do. Now, hopefully, this can bolster the performances of many businesses, especially in the current climate that we are encountering here now. It's not easy, competing with the likes of, big retailers such as Walmart or even Amazon. But at the end of the day, with what's Shopify's goal to help small, medium businesses, can go a long way with partnering with the right company, in this case, Google. Anyway, next we have here another yet an interesting saga, wherein AT&T, the big telecom giant, is ending its media voyage with plans to separate the Discovery channel. According to Reuters.com, it mentions that AT&T owns HBO Max, or HBO. It also owns WarnerBros Studios and Discovery. So big three media companies on its own have a strong fan base. Obviously, for HBO, known for their TV series with the likes of Game of Thrones. Then you have Warner Brothers, film studios have released several big blockbuster films. Then you have Discovery, showcasing different types of content. Anyway, so I was kind of curious when AT&T decided to separate those company and eventually merge into one streaming platform services to compete with the likes of Netflix and even Disney. Will this be a good strategy for said company in the long run? Anyway, so what they plan to do is combine their content to form a standalone global entertainment and media business, which is a great idea since all three companies provide something to the table here that a lot of audience would be interested to watch. And according to the Discovery chief executive David Zaslav, he mentions that including looking at the franchises of Warner Brothers, you have Harry Potter, you have the Batman franchise, to name a few, which also they own, the CNN network, news network. You have sports. You also have many content like cooking and lifestyle, science and nature, and so forth, right? So making this move is makes sense if you're trying to compete in the streaming platform. But for AT&T, which is kind of surprising, obviously, if you're providing uh, internet services for many households, especially now people are accustomed staying at home looking for to watch content in the long run, won't it be more sensible to continue this partnership so that you can grow your business, or in this case your platform, and gain an even market share here? Anyway, so let's see here. Yeah, there you go. So as mentioned, that it's kind of surprising that according to the president, they mentions that the company is going to take a year to be in the position to take control of its assets. So maybe they are having a financial problem. That's why they decided to veer off media from those media companies, which is kind of a missed opportunity if you think about it. But obviously, it underscores the shift of many viewers. Not just me, but a majority wherein TV viewership has been on the decline, and streaming services, or watching, through streaming services, has been on the rise here. And obviously, with those three companies combining their powers, and they're able to scale their business quickly to compete with the likes, as mentioned earlier, with Netflix as well as Disney. Now, question is, how successful will they be? It's difficult to say, because it's one thing to just simply shift from one media to another form or media, and obviously Netflix has been in the market for several years and so forth, so they know how to tap into that market. But for with the likes of this Discovery, you have Warner Brothers, they're focused on different segments in the entertainment medium spectrum. So how successful will they be? We will have to wait and see. So I'm looking forward to what type of content, obviously, with the new direction of the new president, would be interesting here. And obviously, according to the president, or sorry, the chief executive of AT&T mentions that the breakaway from the media companies here is an opportunity for AT&T to direct to consumer streaming, which is rapidly evolving and growing. Obviously, to keep pace with its leadership position, they have to be able to scale it quickly and have access to capital, which is, I think, what's one of the reasons that's why they are pursuing this avenue here now. Whether it makes sense in the long run, who can say? Now, obviously, AT&T's pursuit in the wireless segment has been a costly endeavor, obviously, not just focusing on the telecoms wireless services, but also focusing on the media here. That's why maybe it burned, not say burned them, but it bite them in the end. And it's not just AT&T here. We also have another company, Verizon, which I think we discussed it a few weeks back, wherein they sold one of the companies that they acquired recently or before, and at a loss. I think they sold Yahoo and AOL.com for in the sum of 5 billion, wherein they bought them almost 10 billion. So they're willing to sell it at a loss because of its poor implementation of those companies, and maybe not getting profit that they're looking for here. So, obviously, if you invest in the wrong companies and not putting, the right people in places, would hamper your growth and success. Next, we have here, and it's kind of interesting that one of the big companies is Apple, who's offering uh, a new type of music format. But what's interesting here is they're offering a lossless audio format, ALAC they call it, but it's not going to be available in most of your headgear or head devices that you've bought in Apple, which is kind of surprising either way. Anyway, according to techspot.com, as mentioned, Apple, if you're an Apple Music subscriber, you might be excited that the lossless audio feature, which is called ALEC, as mentioned, is going to be available around next month. But there's a one small caveat that you're going to not like it, that none of its wireless headphones, meaning from your earbuds to all the way to the AirPod Max, I think the wireless headphone support will not support the ALAC or the audio lossless audio codec feature, which is kind of surprising if you think about it. Anyway, so wait, let's see here. Yeah, so according to Apple, it mentions that the music, obviously the purpose of the lossless feature is so you can listen to music even at a lower bit rate, or so that it can save space in your devices here. That's why they offer these features. But what's surprising is, why is it they're not offering this to their, yeah. So Apple Music will allow users to stream songs using this codec in various resolutions and platform, which is kind of good if you think about it. But the problem here is, if you own an AirPod, as I mentioned, the AirPods Pro and even the AirPod Max will not support sorry, support the lossless codec here, which is, I don't know, is it a technical issue or is it by choice, so that you have to buy an additional equipment so that it can be compatible with your headgear, which is expensive on itself. But I guess that's Apple, so it's up to the consumer to say, should it be included in your feature? Just like when you bought a smartphone, charger was included, a headphone was included. Now you have to buy it separately. Now, does it make sense here? Obviously, this is Apple, so one would consider it would make sense logically, but it's different when you consider or talk about Apple here. Anyway, so if you downplayed it with intending to use your Apple headphones here, well, they would work only with Dolby Atmos spatial audio, which is another feature that they're trying to promote, which is kind of good. But obviously, if you're buying headphones, you expect that you'll be able to listen to all types of format, wide ranging from the low end to the high end spectrum, so that for the price that you pay, you get what you want, right? But not necessarily you have a limitation. Then what are you paying for? The high price tag here. And obviously, having this wireless headphone does not support the lossless audio is kind of a moot point here, right? And in order for it to work, you have to use an external device, a DAC of sort, a digital to analog converter, so a USB plug-in. So you have to plug it in your device so that it can play lossless audio here, which is another process that you have to do because of this. I don't know whether it's unintended or intended consequence. Then Apple, what are we doing here? Anyway, for the last one, we were talking about, I think last time, about Tesla regarding the Autopilot feature that they're marketing in their vehicles, especially in their website. But that's a big misnomer if you think about it. When you say Autopilot, there's no one piloting it. That's why it's called Autopilot. And one of the downside of featuring this, obviously you're able to sell a lot of vehicles because with the notion that it can drive itself. Well, a lot of drivers have been taking advantage of that feature with varying degrees of success. Obviously, if you're a government, you would be concerned because to be able to consider a vehicle that is auto can drive itself, or a driverless vehicle, you need at least level 5, or you need to reach that level to be able to designate yourself that way. And Tesla has not yet reached any close to that point. So they're right now at level 2. So anyway, so in this article, according to businessinsider.com, police were able to pull over a driver who was asleep while the autopilot feature was turned on. Now, obviously, this is kind of difficult to prove unless you have cameras showing that the individual is actually sleeping here. But it's not the first incident that this occurred. I think we discussed also another person, not just using the autopilot feature to sleep in the car, but also ride on the back seat of the vehicle and let the driving be done by the autopilot, and which is kind of scary and irresponsible. And thank goodness in those both instances, uh, both individuals and vehicles, were not involved in any incident or fatal crash and so forth. But the problem is, if this were to continue, this type of trend, eventually more and more people would adopt this bad practice, and even if you penalize them, by then it's too late. So is it the fault of the individual, or is it the fault of the manufacturer here? I think fault lies in both parties, because they should rephrase on using the term autopilot. I think it's more on driver assist. I think it mentions also under their categories of different levels of autopilot feature. So unless they clarify that and it's explained or communicated with the users themselves or the buyers of the different Tesla models, then people would misunderstood that if they buy a Tesla, it would be able to drive itself without any human intervention, which is kind of scary here. And as mentioned, going back, so the incident happened in Kenosha County, wherein a deputy mentioned that he saw a 38-year-old man with his head down and not looking in the road. So when they pulled over, obviously they could not prove, but they cited that individual for being distracted here. So it's difficult to prove, but obviously you want to avoid any major accidents here. And whether you're tired or you're intentionally don't want to drive, the technology hasn't arrived yet, right? Which is, I'm looking forward to one day that you can actually use the autopilot feature where it's intended for. But as of right now, we're a long ways to go. And obviously, when the police officer pulled over the person, the individual stated that he was not sleeping, and he was cited for, or was given a traffic citation for inattentive driving. Now, that's only a minor issue, but things could have turned out much worse, which is we don't want to happen at any point in any situation here. Because if you were to sleep and do harm to yourself, which is fine in itself, which is kind of scary, but if you're in a main highway and there's a lot of vehicles, small and even big vehicles, so you can just imagine the catastrophe, people being involved in an accident when someone's already driving. What more if that person is not driving themselves? And the one that was caught doing the backseat driving, how irresponsible is that? You can just imagine, even though he stated in the article that he could, if there was an emergency, he could, with a few seconds, get in front or behind the wheel to take the necessary precaution. But what if it only takes 1 or 2 seconds to get in an accident and, catastrophe were to happen, which is, we don't want to happen. We need more responsible people. That's why, with better technology, awareness, education, all of those things needs to be incorporated so that, people needs to be responsible at the end of the day. Anyway, actually, according to Tesla's website, they mention, what did they say there? It mentions that the current autopilot system doesn't even make the vehicle autonomous. And that's a key thing here that everyone needs to remember. Autonomous meaning it's not fully self-driving yet. It can drive itself at certain conditions, but not in every condition, because there are a lot of factors you have to consider. That's why driving it's difficult in itself. Even if you've been driving on the road for several years or even decades, doesn't necessarily mean that you're already a master of the road, because there are certain instances that hasn't occurred yet, and that's one of the main dilemmas of machine learning in the autopilot feature of any vehicle or any technology, that it hasn't encountered that scenario. And when that rare scenario do occur, and machine was not able to react appropriately, then that's where the accident can happen, right? Which we don't want to see or occur. Anyway, hopefully, this can be addressed, and unless government intervention, put a penalty either on the individual, as well as put a big notice on Tesla's vehicle stating that this is not fully automated yet. I think the terminology is important so that it's communicated. Hopefully the buyers who will use it would understand that assistance is one thing, being automated or fully autonomous is totally different. There are different levels there. Anyway, it gets to the crux of, we're going to a certain point that technology is getting better, but the problem here is, people hasn't gotten acclimated. I forgot the term. That, what does it take to use the technology properly? Like, I think the device from Boston Dynamic regarding Spot the Dog. So there's the technology now that, you could send someone to do survey or go to treacherous, dangerous places without any intervention from an individual. But obviously, it could be used for nefarious purposes. So, you have to look at both sides of the spectrum either way. Anyway, I think that concludes our episode for today. Anyway, thanks for watching again. Come back again on Wednesday for more business update. If you have enjoyed these types of video, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. Or you could also hit the bell notification icon so you can stay updated with the latest news. As always, I'll see you in the next one.